Welcome back to the Respect the Drive podcast. I'm Tedward, and today we are talking Honda Civic Type R FL5. We're taking questions from you, the listeners, which is great because now I'm able to get, not that it wasn't the thing I could do before, but I'm getting voice memos on the Instagram. That's what I like to see because then I can take your voices, I can put you on the podcast, and I can answer your questions, whether it's about cars, life, love, whatever the hell is going on. But it's more fun to have this segment. It feels more interactive. But man, the last few weeks, I took a little sabbatical from the podcast because I needed to focus on videos. I needed to focus on having a little bit of a social life. And what I've realized is that over the past 2 years, I've dedicated pretty much my entire life to the channel, to the podcast, to making this a viable business, which it now is, which is insane to me that I could quit an engineering job and become a YouTuber, an influencer, a creator. Those are strange words to say. And I gotta tell you, when you're dating or when you're meeting new people and they're like, and what do you do for a living? It's weird. It's a very weird thing to explain to people because it's not the norm. People, as much as they like the idea that someday they'd be an influencer, that they'd have a YouTube channel or some form of like side hustle that makes the money or whatever, I gotta say, you meet a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, and you tell them you're an influencer, you're a YouTuber. I make car videos. It's a very different response than you might expect. So, yeah, dealing with that whole thing, that's always entertaining over the summer. But honestly, I've just been saying yes to as much as possible and trying to broaden my horizons. For example, last weekend, I went on a rally, the Rally to Give. Rally to Give is a charitable rally. It's this year it was from Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. We went to Burlington, Vermont, and then we went up to Quebec City, Quebec, which is pretty damn far. I've never actually even been to Canada, which is crazy because in a previous life, I was a world traveler. I used to travel like crazy. I'd do about 200,000 miles a year on an airplane. And I'd go all over the world to India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Vietnam, China, Indonesia, whatever. Wherever your clothes were made is where I was working. And yet never set foot in Canada. I live in Massachusetts. Canada is like 4.5, 5 hours away at the speed limit. It's not far. But somehow I'd never done that. So my team, Team Champagne Ninjas, which I can now say my team, which is great. I mean, I'm part of the team. I'm like an honorary member of that team. But Team Champagne Ninjas, these are the guys that you want to rally with because not only are they good, loyal, awesome dudes, they got great machines. We took the LFA, yes, 1,200 miles in an LFA, a Mercedes SL65 AMG Black Series, a supercharged PPV, a Chevy Caprice with a lot of power that looks very much like a cop car and came in quite handy to move vehicles out of the left lane when we needed to be, on the pedal and getting to where we needed to go. We also had a B5 Audi RS4, pretty rare in the United States. You don't see those very often. It's a wagon with a great green wrap, incredible, 2-inch lift that lets it jump over things, and you've got a big light bar that Ren Scott manufactured. This car, you've seen it on Haggerty, you've seen it on my channel. Matt Ferris vlogged it. Larry Casilla of Ammo NYC has cleaned it after the muddy events at Monticello Motor Club. And then we also had an Audi RS6, a new one, and that was really cool to have. So all the cars ran like clockwork, but more importantly, the guys that we were with, the Team Champagne Ninjas, these guys are just the people you want to be with on a rally. We stuck together, we watched each other's backs, we partied hard every night. It was the best. And it's really good when you can go out, a group of like 50 cars and have 5 of you really stick together and look out for each other was fantastic. And I got to say, as fun as the rally was, I think we might have had more fun driving home. We had a blast coming home from Canada. And we thought, we're in Canada. We got to be careful. We don't want to get arrested. We don't want to get pulled over. We don't want any trouble in Canada. So when we first started our drive back, we were like, taking it a little easy, 75, 80 miles an hour. And then after a while, we're like, guys, we're in the middle of nowhere. And we just booked it. And we made some good time, safe time, good time, safe time. That's the thing is the whole style of these types of big road rallies, like a Gumball 3000 type thing. They're and I don't mean this in an insulting way, they're like a little passé. The idea that you are going to roll into a city as heroes in your supercars, I feel like that's like a little bit gone. And what I found to be really special about this rally was that the cars that we brought, while the Black Series and the LFA were certainly showstoppers, I found so much charm in the Chevy, in the PPV, the police pursuit vehicle, and in the RS4, that jacked up Audi wagon with a roof box. I mean, there's things about these cars that just really work, and they function so well. And I thought that when I got out of the LFA and had to drive the Audis or whatever, that it would feel like, oh, well, I'll have my chance to get back in later. But no, I just fell in love with what I thought were the support vehicles. And that's what I think is the big message here, is that when you go on these road rallies or you see them on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, sometimes it can feel like it's a very limiting thing. It can feel like, well, I don't have a GT3 RS. I don't have a McLaren 600 LT. I don't have the Ferrari. So I can't. You can. You can get your buddies with your GT86s, with your Miatas, with your M3s, with whatever, and you can go on a road trip. And I'm telling you, it doesn't matter. You do not need a hero's welcome into a city. You don't need to be staying at the Fairmont. You can go to a Holiday Inn Express, not sponsored. You can have these experiences just with you and your friends, as long as you're together. And that's what I realized on this rally, which I already knew. I'm not like, this isn't some big epiphany, but I'm just saying, like, you don't have to have some ridiculous thing, because let me be honest here. I've driven the LFA quite a bit now. Nobody looks at it. Nobody even knows what it is. I mean, the people, if you know, and that's great. And maybe you figure it out as it's passing you at 150 miles an hour at 6,000 RPM, and you go, wham, and people go, whoa, what was that? But I gotta say, like, the idea of just having a team that you trust, that you want to be with, that you want to party with, that you want to go to dinner with, that you want to have a few drinks with, and then you want to wake up with and go drive another 1,000 miles with. That's the thing. I think that's that. So that's the message I'm going to give you guys. And that's what I always try to proliferate here, because everything feels so exclusive, especially in the social media world. And it doesn't have to be. You can do it with whatever you've got. And if you got to go do a lemons race in a junker, that'll do it too. All right. Today, we've got Eddie on the pod because we got to talk Hondas, man. We got stuff going on, and we're going to start off the podcast pretty much just diving right into it with no context. So your context is we're talking Civic Type R. But before we get into that, I want to thank Garage 42. I want to thank Team Champagne Ninjas, Craft Detailing, AVI Boston even, because they threw a big party right after the rally to unveil their new facility in Newton, which is fantastic. Our friend Safi, who is a cannonballer, he was part of our second place cannonball team. Him and his wife Tiff Barkawi Designs, they did an incredible job building out this facility in Newton. Now they're doing, they do radar detector installations, they do customizations for interiors, they do sound system installations. It's really good stuff, and I'm really proud of them for making that happen. Again, not sponsored, just some people in my life that I respect and I appreciate, and these people have been around in my life for a while, and these are the people who are driving the Lamborghini in the snow doing donuts in the middle of Boston. So respect where it's due, really proud of them. And of course, Craft Detailing at Garage 42 in Woburn, getting the cars unstickered and cleaned very quickly after this rally, which was pretty impressive. So without further ado, let's jump into this Civic Type R, brand new stuff. Let's go. This is like a synchronicity of a lot of upgrades that are minor. Because, I mean, look, if I came and told you that let's say I have an FK8, you have an FK8, and I tune my car, yours is stock, and you say, oh man, what'd you get out of it? And I said, 9 horsepower. You're going to be like, who the hell cares?
You wouldn't notice.
You wouldn't care. But the difference is, I think this car, despite those numbers being kind of small, like a 9 horsepower gain, a 15 pound-feet of torque, that's not big. But I think the character of that engine is going to feel I think you would be able to close your eyes and know very quickly which engine setup you're in.
Yeah, I mean, I think what they're doing is they're refining their sauce. And Honda's been doing that sort of recipe for years. They aren't the type of company to reinvent the wheel. They do it every other generation cycle, it appears. You know, the ninth generation was just an updated 8th generation Civic, and then the 10th gen was all new, and this 11th gen looks, and it's on the same chassis and platform that's been updated. This Type R is definitely a more mature Type R, just from the looks department. It looks a lot more European. I mean, it looks like an Audi.
Well, and it's
in a good way.
It does. I mean, I've always said my car is a sedan, looks like an A3.
Yeah.
It really does.
They've definitely lost the hatchbackiness in the rear. Like, you can't tell it's a hatchback until you look close.
Yeah, and even your car was pushing the boundaries.
It was pushing it, yeah, for sure. I'm really excited to know what the weight is. I mean, I don't know where people are getting numbers, but they keep saying it's going to be a little heavier than the FK8. That's understandable.
Yeah, the article that you sent to me, it was the night before they released this press release, had it listed at like 80 or 81 pounds heavier, but it also said 326 horsepower. So that was wrong. So I don't know how much we can trust that. Plus, I think that was a Japanese article, and we cannot trust apples to apples curb weight, because curb weight on curb weight is measured differently.
Yeah, and also they might have lighter cars or heavier cars depending on their options, whatever.
And before people freak out, I know it's measured in kilos and not pounds. I'm saying they literally measure it differently with like different amounts of fluid. So it might be dry, it might have 3/4 of a tank of fuel. It's actually different what's in the vehicle when they consider curb weight in Europe, Japan, US.
I mean, weight is also subjective. I mean, if it's within 50 pounds of an FK8, you're not going to notice.
Agreed. Well, all right. Other things. A lighter flywheel paired with a revised rev match system. So I think that's impressive.
That's
because
good.
The other one was good. It wasn't perfect.
Wasn't great. It was good.
It did the job, but it needed more.
Yeah. It struggled at super high RPM. So if you're like at 6,500 and you're going for a downshift into a corner, it sometimes struggled.
They're also saying it's going to have less torque steer. We've also got 19-inch wheels instead of the giant donk 20s that were on your car.
Stupid.
Which everybody had to swap out. You had to go
Junk.
to an 18 that was just the way to go. I can't remember the last time I saw an FK8 on a track on a stock wheel, because those 20s are just so absurd.
You would, if you're tracking your FK8, unless it's like your first time ever, you would have clearly switched the wheels out. I mean, you'd be stupid to run those 20s. They'd literally bald within the first day.
Yeah, I mean, you needed some sidewall, and you definitely forget the track. Try running those on the street.
God, it was a nightmare.
You went through a couple wheels.
Went through 2, and then I finally got rid of them.
But even more importantly than that is the Michelin Pilot Sport 4S, which is going to be on it instead of that Continental. The Continental was okay.
It was all right. It wasn't, it wasn't anything special, but it was fine on the track.
It just felt like a concession, right? It felt like, why aren't you putting the best tire, the best, max performance street tire for a summer on this car? That's the thing.
It was cost.
And probably cost and probably just an arrangement. But then the other thing is, this is getting better aero. They don't have any appearance of fake vents on this car. Everything is just, it is proper. This car is like built to do the thing, and there's still no pricing, but Car and Driver is still adamantly saying it's a $39,999 estimate, which, we'll see. I can't imagine it going much higher than 42. So let's hope that's the case.
They might have changed it just seeing the Corolla's pricing as well.
I told you that car was going to be $50,000.
Well, the Maurizio or whatever it's called.
But even then it's a $44,000 car, and then it's a $34,000 car. And I know you don't get nearly as many goodies in terms of like limited slip diffs and all this other stuff.
It's also, I mean, it's also, it appears that the circuit model and the other one are limited. So those are probably already called for by now. I don't think anybody's getting those now.
But they're also saying that the base Corolla, GR Corolla, is not going to be available until November of 23?
No, 22.
No.
23?
Yes.
So, okay.
Did you not remember
confused.
the whole thing?
No, I know, but I'm still confused.
I'm
still fucking confused.
The Drive said it was coming out this year. And then Car and Driver and everybody else said, no, it's next year. So I don't it's not coming out this year.
Oh my God.
So that's a long time. Whereas Honda is gonna. People have been complaining that Honda is dragging out their launch of this Type R.
They might be.
They are a little bit, but the thing is, they've only given teasers. They're not like they're not really announcing much. They gave people they gave people like me a look at it so we could poke around it. We haven't driven the car. No one's driven the car. And when they do, when this launch happens, I think the cars will start hitting shelves, right? Because we're already seeing them
shipping.
They're already shipping. They're already coming off trucks in Japan. So we know it's happening. And we know that Dory has his car. Tsuchiya over at Best Motoring.
He's already thinking of ways to make it faster. So.
Yeah, so I just can't wait. I'm thrilled because this means people have been driving it. This means that people who are not me are driving this car, and I want to.
I want to as well.
I can't wait.
I think it's going to be a step up in terms of driving feel and dynamics. It might not be any faster than an FK8 around the track, or marginally faster, like noticeable differences. But I think they're going to get the turn. It looked just by watching some of the ride-alongs on the internet that the turn-in is a lot crisper and more direct. Not as much. It looks like you don't have to turn the wheel as much to turn the car and get it to rotate a little bit. But the dampening looks a lot better.
It still looks
not pogoing. But
it
looks
still
firm.
looks stiff. It looks stiff.
It's a Type R.
Yeah.
It's going to be stiff.
What I'm excited though is the big difference on this car versus the FK8 is that you'll be able to change individual mode to allow you to have a softer suspension setting with all the other stuff in like plus R mode.
Yeah, they needed to have done that the first time around, but
which is really
it's
exciting.
a little too late. So, but yeah, no, I mean, now colors. Are you going to go for a white like everybody else if this does end up happening? Or are you going to go for some more outgoing color like red or blue or...
I already own a Sonic Gray Pearl car, Civic, and I didn't really want that as my top pick because I don't just want to transform my car into a Type R like that. I think the only color that is specific to the Type R, that is individual to the Type R, is the championship white. Mm-hmm. So that is funny because I hate white cars. I'm so sick of white cars. I can't look at another white BMW or Mercedes or whatever.
Yeah.
But something about a Honda in white like that championship white is really special. And it looks great. So,
it is the color. I mean, it's the color on all the R models, but also on their F1 car in like the 60s.
Right. And then Boost Blue would probably be my second choice.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a real hot color for the Type R. I love Rally Red, but I don't know that I'm a red car guy.
I don't think you are.
And also, I like to have a bit more contrast between taillight and paint. And I don't know that that's going to happen in that. Plus, just too much red because you get in that interior red
looks like
seats.
Ronnie McDonough in there.
That's the thing. I think the when they do like a limited edition or whatever and they give us that yellow one, it is going to look like ketchup and mustard when you open the door.
That's what I thought when it came out the last generation. I was like, oh my God, it looks like a ketchup packet, with string cheese.
I think the black looks great. Crystal Black Pearl is fantastic. However, it hides all the lines. It doesn't show you how bulbous and like wide the car is, and you also lose the definition on the vents around the front quarter panel.
They don't exist. They just blend in with the paint.
So I don't think it's great to photograph, and that's the thing. Like if I'm gonna have a Type R, I want to be able to go and take photos with it, and I think having a white car does that pretty well. And then Sonic Gray Pearl would be my my third choice, I think, just because I do love the color. And when I saw Tsuchiya leaning against it, I was like, oh my God.
Do they have a silver, or is that just the gray?
No silver.
Because I feel like a silver in that car would be the best daily understated color.
It would look sexy. And that's the thing. That's another color that I'm so bored with. Like it's just a Camry silver, but like, my God, that would look so good on a Type R.
Good on that with some black wheels.
Tempting to like paint or wrap the wing in paint color because the only color that it's paint matched in is the black. And it's not really paint matched because it's not going to be.
No, it's just
not going to have metallic.
Black.
But still, I think if you take and wrap that championship white, that'd look pretty hot.
Yeah. I think it'd look good. So now you're talking about modding a car. This is something also
Ooh.
you haven't done that in your
It's been a while.
later years.
So I got to sell some parts from the M3 because I had 3 sets of wheels for the M3. I had like the standard 19s with the PS4Ss. I had the Winters on a stock set of 18s, and I had the Apex wheels, which I kept the Nitto 275 square setup on. And so I got to sell the Winters and the Nittos, the Apex wheels. And then I guess I'm probably going to do the same thing because this Type R is going to do all the things my M3 did except for go sideways under power.
They might fit on your car.
The Apex?
Yeah.
It won't look good. I want to go JDM on this.
They're like a bronzy color.
No,
Are they?
they're
I
like
forget.
they're like
It's been so
gunmetal.
long.
They're like anthracite or gunmetal.
Oh,
or something
okay,
like
yeah.
that.
It's time to go anyways. Those are
No, I want this Type R to be like obnoxiously Japanese. I want it to be on like TE37s in bronze or like a gold 5-spoke Vogue or something like that. Like something that is just painfully toge, like like, oh, this boy really loves this car.
Yep.
That's what I'm looking for. So I don't know how deep down that rabbit hole I'll go, but I definitely want it.
Definitely. I think those cars complement aftermarket parts really well. Unlike a lot of newer cars, I hate when people put like certain aftermarket things like taillights and stuff on like German cars. I'm like, the German cars are so good. Like, why are you messing with that? You know?
And the thing is, the reason why you think that, I think, is because a lot of the cars that people mod are cheap. And I forgot about this because when I bought my Civic Si, all the Facebook groups were like young people or people with like who just upgraded from like a 9th gen Civic Si or something. And not all of them, but a lot of them. And then the first thing they're doing is they're getting the tint, they're getting the wheels, they're getting like the lip spoiler and this and that. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? It's a Civic. And I am the old man now.
Yeah.
That's like, why are you doing this? This makes no sense. Like, just drive the car. And I'm like, oh, right, because this is what people do. This is what I used to do, or what like kids in my generation did when I was younger, which was you buy a car that is like mass produced. And maybe that's a contentious point because everyone's having a hard time getting one of these. But you buy a Civic Si, like an 8th gen back in the day, and you would tint the taillights. You would make your car your own. So despite the fact that it's the same car that you're driving around seeing like, a dozen of every day, you modify your car so it's yours. It's your taste and it's identifiable as yours. And nobody can mistake that is, Jay's Civic Si or Tom's Civic Si. Everyone knows whose is whose. And I just happen to choose 2 names that are like synonymous with JDM tuning and racing.
I was going to say, like, where are you going with that? No, I think modification to a degree can be good on cars, especially cars that, like you said, they aren't perfect. I mean, there's always ways to improve any car. But then I think some people may go overboard, and that's when I draw the line.
Well, and I think the reason that me and you would modify a car is to make the car go faster or to make the car do something that it couldn't previously do. So to me, the first modification on a car like a Civic Si, everyone's like, you got to tune it. I'm like, guys, there's no tune in the world that's going to make this car fast, so it doesn't matter. Power is negligible. You can put 50 horsepower on this thing, and I promise it, like, it just doesn't matter. All you're doing is putting your engine at risk. So to me, it's like, oh, well, you get a sticky set of rubber. So then you get that sticky set of rubber. You find yourself being like, man, we're carrying a lot more speed. I think I'm going to need to put some, higher temp brake fluid and maybe a more aggressive pad in the car. And then once you're doing that, you're like, man, now that we've got all this extra speed and grip and braking ability, sure does lean quite a lot, doesn't it? So then you're like, well, we're going to have to upgrade some stuff. So then you maybe... You want it to feel like it's got a lower CG, so maybe you put a lowering spring on it that's a little stiffer. But then you're like, yeah, but that helps, but now it's bouncing, right? So then you got to go to the damper, and by the time you're done, you've done a full suspension on the car, because then once you've done that, you're like, man, these bushings are starting to wear because I'm putting so much fucking stress on them. So you go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Whereas like So that's the path that I would see me and you modifying a car.
Absolutely, which is the total opposite of what 99%.
No, what do? They go and they fucking rip the suspension out and put it on bags, and then they put a tune on it, and the other car's undrivable.
Burble tune.
And it's a piece of shit.
Burble tune until the stock clutch blows up.
What muffler are you putting on it? Who fucking cares?
I didn't put a muffler on it until a company gave me one. Because if that company didn't reach out and give me one, I wouldn't have put a fucking muffler on. It's not adding any power. Maybe if it was weight related, I may have done it, but that car's a fat whore. All right, that Civic. I'm not. The reality when people are like, oh my god, your Type R is so light. I'm like, bullshit.
No,
is that thing light? That thing
light.
On the track compared to my competition,
Oh,
I'm like 300 pounds
she's
heavier.
She's a big girl. Yeah.
I mean,
she's having a good time out there, but
I still have air conditioning.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you don't want that bumping into you. You're gonna fall over.
So
it's funny. Like I put a muffler on my M3, but that was purely because and I didn't even put a loud muffler. The Corsa was kind of an in between because I'm like, I'm not straight piping my daily driver.
That was the best muffler. Do you remember we were looking at videos, we heard it, and then one came up used. And
it was Austin's.
It was Austin's. That's what it was.
Which is so funny because Austin runs Valvetronic Designs, the muffler company, and so he was like putting like his own system on his car, and so he was like, "I'm getting rid of this Corsa. Tom, you want it?" I'm like, "Yeah, I want it. That sounds really good." So I put it on the car. I'm like, "This is fantastic," and he's like, "Great. Let me put a Valvetronic system on your car." I'm like, "No." And he goes, "What?" I'm like, "No, this course is perfect. I love it."
We were looking at those right before it happened. Do you remember? Like we were looking at Corsa videos, and then out of nowhere, he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm selling it," and I'm like, "You got to do it."
That's the one because it doesn't drone.
It's just an axle back.
It's just an axle back. It is just mufflers.
It's just mufflers.
I kept all the cats. The car sounded insane at Redline.
It was perfect for what you were doing,
And it was quiet, like when it needed to be quiet.
Exactly.
I mean, it still was bold and it was still clearly an S65, but it wasn't offensive. There's a difference between, ooh, that car started down the street, and oh my god, what just started down the street? What a dick, you know? And I wasn't the dick. I was like, huh, what's that?
For someone who's had a lot of offensive mufflers in his life, those S65s are some of the worst. Worst offenders.
They can be brutal. If you go straight pipe on an S65, they are wake the dead.
So loud.
Wake the dead.
So loud on the track. Holy shit, are they loud.
It's absolutely crazy. All right, what do I have on my list? I have been rewatching Initial D.
Initial D. Initial D.
Go! No, that's Best Motoring. But anyway. So I have been watching this, and it's really interesting because what I'm realizing is that I have never watched it sequentially. I have always, I thought in my brain, I'm like, yes. If someone said, have you seen all of Initial D? I would say yes. And I'm watching this, I'm like, I have never seen like 90% of this. Must have just walked in on Chew watching it or Anton watching it and been like, oh, okay, sit down for an episode. And like, I'm like, wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, the show, all right, so first thing, it's so funny you say that because I think it was like a couple weeks ago, I was talking to Corey about Initial D, and I'm like, we should watch it. You've never seen it. And we started rewatching the first season, which I hadn't watched in over a decade. I hadn't watched it since high school. And I started to watch it, and I don't know if you got this, but I started to realize that I totally missed the actual concept of the show.
When Corey described it, so Corey was talking to someone else near me, and she was like, "Oh, I'm watching Initial D," and I'll say what she said just for context, because there's probably a lot of people that are listening that don't know what this is. But basically, it's a Japanese anime show based off of like a manga or manga.
Yeah, it's a comic.
Comic, right? Yeah. And yeah, so this is not my specialty. I do not chase anime, but this is an anime based off of that comic. And essentially, it's a high school student who works at Fujiwara Tofu Shop with his dad. It's his dad's shop, and he does the tofu deliveries. He's been doing the deliveries up and down this like mountain pass for years, and he drives an AE86. It's a Corolla, basically, right? And he over time he's learned to drive as fast as he can. He doesn't even like driving. It's just that he wants to get home. He just wants the job to be done. So the idea that he's like driving this car and drifting it and doing insane things just to get home so he can either do his homework or go out with his friends or whatever. He's just driving and driving and driving. and he's become really, really good at driving. And his dad puts like a cup of water in the center console and like a cup holder, basically to be like, hey, look, like don't spill the water. Like if you can not spill the water on your drive up and drive down, then you're good. Which is really funny because my dad used to catch me driving like an asshole, and we had a Mark III Golf, and I shared it with him. It was his car, but like I would take it when I was 16, and when I'd come home, he'd be like, hey, you hitting that off ramp a little hard? And I'm like, no, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, the change is everywhere, because there was like a little pocket on the side of the seat, and he'd keep quarters in there, and the quarters would be all over the floor. And so
my God.
I was apparently not good at keeping the water in the cup.
Clearly.
But anyway, she described that. And I'm like, I had no idea that was the concept of the show. Like it totally was lost on me, because I must have only watched way later seasons.
I only remembered the show as a street racing show. That's the only thing I remembered. And the toge scenes and the sexual innuendos.
Oh my God, it's so misogynist.
Oh, it's quintessential 90s Japan.
They're like, every time, like, because they're high school boys, so they're like, oh, look at these girls, and then they'll just do like bow bow bow, and they'll just show like shots of their boobs, their waist, and their ass, like that.
Yep.
Like, and they're like, oh, she's so cute, and then they treat the women like dum-dums.
Oh my God.
And they act like they're kind of woke. They're like
the creepy guy.
It's really weird. They're all so creepy, and I'm like, oh God, like I actually realized I recommended the show to my cousin who's 12. And I actually am going to have a talk with him now that I'm thinking about it, to be like, don't treat women the way these guys treat women.
You know what, though?
You're not going to get anywhere.
Your cousin's 12. That's totally the appropriate age to watch this.
I think it's perfect.
Absolutely.
Because but like the best thing about this cartoon, this anime, is that it really does talk about driving, because Tsuchiya from Best Motoring, he was the supervisor.
Yeah.
The production supervisor.
And he was a rough inspiration for Takumi.
Yeah, which brings me to my next point. This is I'm glad that he didn't necessarily write it, because if he wrote it based on himself,
it would have sucked.
No, it's just really cocky.
Yeah, no. It would have sucked in the sense of, it would have just been like, and he went for another pack of cigarettes.
Well, so the whole idea was this kid doesn't really even care about racing, but he's the best race car driver, and all the girls think he's so hot, but he's so aloof that it doesn't even matter. Oh, honey, we're on a date. Yeah. Why are you looking off into the distance? Oh, I'm just thinking, because I'm so fucking cool that I don't even have to think about racing. I just win everything, and all the girls want me, and everything's great, and I have the best technique, and I can't lose.
Well, that's the first season.
It is.
The later ones, as you will watch, demonstrate that everybody becomes humble at some point.
It's true. It just makes me laugh, because like the initial part of the show is,
no pun intended,
initial part, yeah, is very much like, look how fucking awesome I am and how hot I am. It's basically like an Instagram model who's like looking off into the sunset, like, yeah, man, just thinking about things. And like, if you wrote that about yourself, it would be really cocky, because like the guy in the character seems humble, but all the surrounding characters, all they do is jerk him off. So all they're doing is talking about, oh, he's the guy, that's the guy. Oh my God, he's so good.
Ever.
He's so hot. I had no idea he was so hot, and he's so talented. Yeah. Wow, he must be so cool. He must know everything. And it's like, okay, I get it that it's all the surrounding characters, but if you were the writer and it's about you wrote other people talking about you in a nice way. And so it's like kind of a weird thing to watch sometimes, where I'm like, man, I really want to, like, at first you're like getting chills and goosebumps, because you're watching all these really intense races where he's in an underpowered car. It's his skill and knowledge of the road that's getting him the win.
Yeah, he's doing inertia drifts around.
But eventually you're like, this guy needs to lose.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
I want to watch him.
Happen.
Yeah.
It'll happen.
All right. The other thing about this show is, for the most part, it's really accurate about like what's going on with cars.
Oh, I would say it's 85% accurate too. And especially in the performance category and the looks category, they got everything, mostly everything, not everything, but mostly everything correct and accurate. I mean, some of the cars in Initial D, like the parts on them, were accurate.
For sure.
Of the time period.
But the whole show is exposition, which is interesting, because what they do is they use either internal monologue or random people standing on the side of the road to just explain what's going on. Like, why does this corner matter, right? Because otherwise we've all watched racing. And most people think racing is boring as shit. So
which it is.
It
for
is.
the most part, if you don't know what's going on.
No, but like what's great about the show is that it amps it up by showing you why something matters. Why does it matter where this guy is positioned at this corner? And the other thing though is that sometimes they're bizarrely wrong about this. Now, keep in mind, I am not watching subs over dubs. Okay, I'm watching the dubbed version. I do not have the patience to read this. Okay, I am listening to an English translation.
So
okay?
you're not a sub?
I'm not I'm not doing the subs. So that's the old school anime guys are gonna be, oh, this guy doesn't even know he hasn't even seen it. He doesn't even know what he's watching.
Yeah, like everybody who listens to this can be like, that's not the story.
That's not how it works. But there was an episode I watched recently where he was basically pressuring a heavier car from behind to like lose front end grip because he's just pressuring
the R32.
No, this is actually the Evo, the Lancer Evo.
So you're in 2.
I'm in season 2.
Okay.
I'm in stage 2.
Stage 2.
They made this huge deal about how he's like losing grip on his front end, and he keeps saying, "I'm losing pressure. I'm losing tire pressure." I'm like, "No, your tire pressure is now too high because they're hot."
I have a feeling that is a translation issue. They probably said it correctly, but the translation didn't translate correctly over into English, so they improvised and they just took something that they thought made sense, like, oh, the tires. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Tires are getting low because that happens to everybody.
But it's like your tires are not getting low; they're getting hot, which means the pressures are increasing. Which
That's
means
curious. You know what? You should watch the sub version.
Okay,
and just see what pops up.
I'll go back
instead. Because if it is tire pressures, then so be it. But
yeah. But I just thought
who the fuck would let that go?
Right, but that's the thing. I'm like, well, if I know this, then it should not have stood under Tsuchiya's watch.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say they're talking about engines and the head work on some of these engines, and then they fuck that up, man. Yeah. I don't know.
So anyway, highly recommend this because over the course of this month, I mean, this is actually a recent development. Just because
He's become a JDM fan.
I am just becoming that guy, but I've. Because COVID slowed me down so much, like I've watched so much television.
So much porn.
No, not even porn. Just like legit, like diving in, binging shows. And I'm single now, so I have to find shows that I didn't watch with him because I don't want to watch the shit that I watched with him.
Just end the make sure that you change all the passwords so he can't watch them.
Well, there is definitely still access to my Disney Plus, which I should probably change.
Change that shit
Whoops.
right now.
But man, I like it's been a wild month and it's hard to get motivated to do shit. Like I think like you're in a similar position, I think emotionally, but you have always had a schedule.
If you want to call it that.
You've got a grid life schedule.
Yeah,
You've got to go. It doesn't matter if you want to or not. You're getting in that truck and trailering your car.
I would say this year pushed me to my limits in terms of just effort, time, and energy. I have never been worked this hard. The amount of
Look at that, Chris Amos calling.
Tell him we say hi.
Hang on one sec. Let me take this real quick. We'll put him on. Hey, Chris, what's happening? Christopher?
Not much, man. Just calling to chat. Good time? Busy?
I'm actually you're on the podcast right now. I just put you on. I'm here with Eddie right now.
Hey, Chris.
Oh, hey. What's up, Eddie?
What up?
It's good to hear from you. What are you driving? What are you doing?
Oh, I'm in a Hyundai Ioniq 5. Just cruising to the studio, about to do a headshot. And I was like, you know what? I'm about to take a headshot. It's time to call Tedward.
Dude, how's that Ioniq 5?
It's kind of boring to drive, but really, really cool to look at. Like, really cool.
It's so beautiful. What color did they give you? Did they give that gunmetal gray thing?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's the one with the like the Rubik's Cube looking stuff, right?
It kind of looks like if BMW didn't like self-immolate, this is what they would have become.
It's got the really
Yeah.
cool, colorful charger port. I remember that.
I don't know about that.
Right.
Does it have a cool, colorful charger port, Chris?
I haven't charged it yet, but I think it has some type of cool charging situation.
Yeah.
It's it's all very interesting.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. It kind of looks like a big Golf, like old Golf, like a Mark 1 or Mark 2 Golf. It's really kind of bizarre.
Well, I'm getting a ton of interference on my end just because phones, for whatever reason, do not do well with my podcast equipment. But do you have any final thoughts that you need to get off your chest here on the Respect the Drive podcast?
No, I didn't even know I was on the podcast. Wow, that's exciting. I think the phone cut out when you said that, and I would have been way more stammery if I had done.
Well, I will give you a call back later, but thank you for inadvertently calling in.
All right, talk to you later.
See ya.
See ya.
Well, guys, that's the Topher.
Yeah.
That's my boy. All right, I've got a voice memo, 2 voice memos from Eli Rubin, Ignition Tube, our boy over at FCP Euro.
Our little Euro trash
All right.
boy.
He's always looking for new Euro trash. He sends. I'm not going to tell you what he sent me because he always has. He likes to surprise people. with cards.
He always
is
has
looking
a
for
witty little.
money pits that I'm like, dude. Even if you do this as a joke, it's going to ruin you.
Great.
All right. Anyway, so here's the first one. I was going to connect this properly, but I'm just going to do it through the mic. Fuck it.
Sounds good enough.
Hey Tom, Eli here. Big fan of the show. Long time watcher, first time voice typer. Anyway, curious, when was the moment when it kind of clicked in your head that you could do this YouTube thing full time? And how did that change your perspective on the day job that you had, as well as like your potential future that was possible now?
All right, so there's another one coming up too, but that's a really good question. There wasn't. I actually got so sick of my job that I was going to quit it, whether I had it. I had to quit whether I had this lined up or not.
I remember we had this discussion for months before it actually happened. Of can you actually do this and survive?
I knew that I could make enough money to pay my bills, but I didn't know that I'd be able to make enough money to like have health insurance, right?
Health insurance or keep camera equipment going or whatever
Right.
the case.
So at the time, my channel was definitely not sustainable. It was maybe making like a couple to a few $100s a month. Like it wasn't nearly enough, and I was making a little bit of money on Winding Road magazine and some other stuff. So I was probably able to clear, like I said, I was able to clear my bills. But I thought Chris Amos, the Topher, who we heard from earlier, he is somebody who was like, dude, like if I can make this work, you can make this work, and here's what you got to do. And he didn't tell me what to do with my content. He just told me if you're consistent, it'll grow. And then I figured it out. So yeah, I wish there was a moment where like I said, oh my God, I always tell people like if I'm on a dating app and someone asks me what I do, and they're like, oh, you're a YouTuber? I'll always use the same thing, which is kind of a lie, which I say, yeah, once I realized YouTube, once YouTube got big enough, I quit my job. That is not true. YouTube was not big enough. I was totally like, oh my God, what am I doing? But I couldn't stand another day walking into that office. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, it was a rough patch for sure.
So
and then
that-
COVID hit, and
then
it made
COVID
it even
hit.
worse.
Well, COVID actually made it better for me because it meant that I didn't have to worry. Like without COVID, when everyone was doing stuff, I would have felt like, oh man, I got to save money, so I can't go out with my friends and blah, blah, blah.
That is true.
But COVID hit and no one could do shit. So it was like, oh good, I'm not missing out on anything. All right, second one. I don't know if this is the same thing twice.
One more question for you, and this one may be more of a metaphor. Let's say, it's been a while, and you finally, you get it in gear, and you start accelerating. Let's say, and red line is approaching too quickly. What do you think about to help you not hit red line as quickly? What's your secret to lasting longer before red line?
Well, thankfully, today's podcast is sponsored by Hims. I wish. Wouldn't that be great? Then we'd have those. They make wipes for the.
Oh, they do.
So that way you don't. It's like a numbing wipe.
It's a
So you
numbing
don't.
wipe.
So you don't. So you don't.
I'll be quite honest. I don't really have that problem.
Oh, good for you. think about baseball. Think about something boring. Just take a break, slow down, mix it up a little bit. We got a young audience, I think, in some regards, so I'm not going to get too graphic and explicit. But, there are many other things to focus on than that. So you can always go and mix it up, and they'll be like, "Oh my God, look at I didn't think you'd switch it up this way," and you can act like it's all part of it, but it's really just so you're not gonna, be a disaster and
Over rev.
and over rev. You don't want to bend those valves. You don't want soft valves. Valve stems belong.
You do not want to blow that rear end up.
Oh my goodness. I got to thank him for this. That's
a
good stuff.
question. I'm surprised it wasn't about some sort of trashy Euro car that thinks which is better.
I agree. All right, so let's take a look. We've got a lot of written questions. A lot of people, I asked for voice DMs.
People are scared.
They're so
People
scared.
don't want to be heard.
I mean, look at he's
Their
over,
voices.
he's over here asking me how to last longer, not hit red line.
I mean, to be fair, you're a good candidate to ask that too.
I guess so.
Just saying.
All right, so let's see.
Got the experience.
Dylan, some of these I'm not going to give actual names for because they might be asking like more personal questions. But Dylan Kroll 20 says, "What are your opinions on new drivers having fast or powerful cars?"
That was me.
It was you, and it's a miracle you're here.
No. Okay, my first car was not fast. It was powerful. Well, powerful-ish. It had like 200 something horsepower.
What
but
was it?
Fast. It was the Mercedes.
Okay.
I wouldn't call it fast.
Yeah, but you're telling. I'm asking because you have to tell them.
Yeah. So my first car though.
You're on a You're not just talking to me. You're talking to like
No.
1,000 people.
I know. So Dylan, my first car
Good memory.
was an E39 M5.
Right. Which is too fast
That
for a
was
16-year-old.
fast at no. I was 19. But
Okay.
I'm still not
All right.
20. Still my teens. I cannot believe I'm not in jail owning that car. I like seriously the things I did in that car. I don't even like talking about. It's like seriously stupid. And back then those cars they were old, but no one really thought of them as these collectibles. So I mean, fuck, I beat the shit out of that car. I would first, second in that thing, and then third, and let the thing spin the tires up.
Yeah.
I mean, but I think if there's one thing I learned is how to respect horsepower out of that car.
Oh yeah.
Because I mean, I learned a lot about driving dynamics, but you have to have respect. Cars like that demand respect. Even with the best traction control, the best nannies, all the lane keep or whatever the hell it is now, you can still get in trouble with
Agreed.
over 300 horsepower.
And the other thing is that no matter how much power you have, obviously a faster car can get you into trouble quicker.
No matter what, yeah.
But a slow car is still just as dangerous because our driver education focuses more on how to parallel park and avoid an accident at 1 mile per hour than it does on merging at 70 miles an hour onto a busy freeway.
Yeah.
And that's a huge issue. So I think at the end of the day, if you are a conscientious driver and you recognize when, and I really mean recognize when it's appropriate to, let's say, bend some rules with enthusiasm. Spirited driving.
Yeah.
This is a thing that I wish it could be taught more, but it's more like a feeling. And I always say, like, if you're leaving a car show and your heart is pounding,
No.
don't do whatever you think you're going to do. Just cut it. Cut
Yep.
the shit. Turn the traction control back on and do not rip out of that parking lot. If your heart's pounding, don't do it. If you're calm, maybe that's fine. But like, if you're ever approaching a situation and you're sitting there going, and your heart beats twice, 3 times as fast, don't do whatever you were going to do.
I was going to say, if you think it's a bad idea, then most likely it's a bad idea.
Yep. And especially if there's people in the car.
That's what I mean.
Especially if there's people in the car. Do not put people at risk. Do not put other motorists at risk. So, this is the thing is that there was a kid that died up the street pretty recently, going really, I mean, God, the car was gone. It was
What
really,
was it?
I forget what the car was. It might have been like an Infinity or something, but he just graduated high school. And there was like 3 kids in the car. I think only one of them, I shouldn't say that. I don't mean like only one of them died, but when you saw the car, you're like, I can't believe anyone survived this. I don't think they were wearing a seatbelt. I'm not sure, but either way, they were on a really narrow road with no options, right? Like, you know how we talk about racetracks like Palmer, where you're like, wow, there's nowhere to go if something goes wrong. This is worse because it was like,
Trees.
It was barely a 2-lane road, and it was trees like practically growing into the pavement.
Oh.
So I'm like, this was just, there was no hope if anything went wrong, and they must have hit at like 70 plus. And so that's what I mean. Like, choose your battles. It's a hard thing to teach because it's like teaching someone to, I don't want to teach people to drive fast anyway. I don't want them to be illegal at all. But
I mean, I think I was also going to say, when we were younger, it was a lot different. I'm not saying it was still a good idea to, but I'm just saying it was a lot different.
I don't know if that's true.
There was less cars on the road.
That's probably
way
true.
less cars.
But
on
I
the
think
road.
I think the reason things always feel different, like, oh, it was different back then. It's like, well, because you were different back then. You know,
I think the conditions have gotten 10 times worse. I mean, I was looking at some old videos of of GoPro footage. There was nobody on the road at 10 o'clock. So, I mean, nowadays, and remember, everybody's got a camera. Everybody's got a dash cam.
Yeah, you don't want to get caught doing dumb shit.
And people are ready to tell the police.
I mean, look, you'll watch me in most of my videos. There are roads that I know a lot of people are like, why are you driving so slow? And it's like, because there's houses and I'm on camera, and I wouldn't drive here even if I wasn't on camera. This is why, like, I like driving the slower cars more. Like when someone gives me like a 356, like an old Porsche, I have more fun in those because I can do 45 miles an hour and wring its neck. Yeah. Whereas like, you put me in an Aventador and it's like, well, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just putting around.
Now that I've done it for a long time, when you can, go to the racetrack or an autocross course.
So you know what? Maybe that's the answer to the question. What's my opinion on new drivers having fast, powerful cars? Don't, because you can't even use them.
Yeah.
Don't. Get a slow car and learn how to get a slow car. Get a Tercel. Get a Tercel on donuts and learn how to drive the nuts off of that thing at 48 miles an hour. And then we'll graduate you to the Corolla.
Sizes and everything.
All right.
So
let's see. What's the next one? What can we as drivers do to educate non-enthusiasts as to how to not drive like shit? That's from Jake K. Hader. So what do we do?
I think it starts from the bottom. I mean, I think it literally starts with driving education. I mean, the programs that are here.
It does, but we're here. What do we do? Like, how do you
atrocious.
How do you backseat drive without being an asshole backseat driver? Like, how do you tell somebody what not to do? My approach to this is the kill them with kindness thing, where like when somebody does something good, when someone zipper merges properly, when someone lets me in, when someone does something that I'm like, that was good driving, I wave to them. I really do. Yeah. And especially if I do something shitty, because sometimes, you're like, oh shit, I got to get off at this ramp. I can make that. It's a little tight. It's maybe not as many car lanes behind me as I would like to leave for this person, but I'm not going to hit the brakes. You get in there, you give them a wave. You make sure that they know that I'm not the asshole taking their space. I know that it was tight, and I'm giving you a wave to let you know. So yeah. I think just being courteous is my big thing.
It goes a long way, for sure. I remember people who waved to me. Not many waved to me.
It goes a long way. It goes a long way.
So
even when I pass somebody on like a 2-lane road, like I'll give them a wave just to be like, hey, thanks, because I'm not passing you to flip you off. I'm passing you because I just have the room and the power to do it.
Yeah,
that's fine. But like, what would you do with somebody who you're in the car?
You're in the back seat, and a family member, because we've been there before.
Holy shit!
Even our friends. I mean, we're not gonna call them out.
Biggest fights of my life.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. I think, for me, anyways, immediately getting on someone's case about their driving is not the way to do it.
Right.
After the thing has been done, whatever the case is, and you go, what the fuck was that? That's not going to solve anything but just get him more amped, and it's not going to teach anybody.
No.
I think the best way to do it is is not only trying to explain what happened, but also maybe show them when you're driving.
It's true. Like, oh yeah, this is what I'm doing.
Because I mean, I'm a visual learner, and watching other people drive is how I learned to a degree.
Agreed. That's how I learned how to drive a stick, was just watching other people drive a stick.
You could have told me a million times that you're not supposed to go left on a red or whatever. I'm just making something up. But
sure.
If I was watching someone and then they say, oh yeah, you really shouldn't do this, then I'm not going to do it.
It's weird how defensive people get about their driving in that regard. And it's funny because like when I think of someone backseat driving for me now, it's literally because I'm like, hey Eddie, should I brake later here, like on a racetrack? Like I want your input. Like when I go out with you, I'm like, I want your input. I want to know if I had more to give.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I think like the mentality of driving is like, don't tell me what to do.
There's a lot of association with driving and your masculinity.
That's such a
And
bizarre thing.
And I think that is total bullshit.
Right?
Okay. Because obviously, I mean, I've seen it at this point. They do not correlate at fucking all.
No, it makes you a bigger hothead. Like,
Total dipshit.
and also, that's not even true because I've seen like really vilely aggressive women on the road to them. Like, what the fuck are you doing? You're going to kill that whole family, lady. What are you doing?
Yeah. Tesla driver.
It's nuts. All right. Well, I guess we need to see a therapist about this one because I think we need a little more than just gentle talk because people don't want to be told what to do. But also, for example, my ex would stop after the stop signs, like practically in the intersections.
What the fuck?
On these like busy city roads, and I'd be like, oh my God, I'm like, we're gonna fucking die in this car. And I really didn't know what to do because I knew that he was not going to be receptive to that. So I just used to close my eyes.
So hold on. I'm just for the listeners. Your best case situation is you're in a situation where the person blows a red light or drives erratically, is to just close your eyes and say, well, this might be my time.
Yeah, I know that sucks.
Jesus.
But it was like, it was going to turn into a huge fight.
No, but you've been in the car, and I've been in the car with you when you've been like, okay, enough.
Yeah, and you listen though.
And I've listened, and whoever else has been driving, you've done it with me, other people, and that works just fine.
Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of like rules, like following rules, I'm not talking about speeding or taking a corner too fast or whatever. Basic rules of the road. That is very hard because a lot of people have different ideas of what a rule is and what isn't. So in terms of that, unfortunately, it has to be learned in the beginning, in my opinion. It's very hard to teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah, I agree. Man, all right. So that seemed like a hard question, right?
That's a very difficult question. That's the same question that everybody has. Like, how do you tell your 89-year-old relative to stop driving?
Yeah, I got a harder one.
Oh, fuck. All right, let's go.
So this one, I'm not going to give a name on this one. How do you come out to your parents? Sorry, not car related.
No. I mean, that's still a great question, but holy shit.
I wish. Remember with those campaigns that were like, it gets better. It gets better. Well, guess what? It doesn't really get better. I mean, you get older, I guess. So that changes. But
I think like, I mean, I'm saying this because I've never been in this situation myself. Other than I may have come out as just being a total arrogant douchebag.
Well, they knew that. You didn't.
But they would have known that years ago. I think it depends on the family or the people you're doing it to, because like sometimes there's no changing people's minds.
Right. So there's two things that I would consider. Number one is you need to consider what's my support system, because you need to have more than your family if you are concerned that your family is not going to accept you. So like anything in the world, like if you might go into a room and like drop a bomb, that is going to change things. You need people that are going to be able to support you. So if you're like, and that really depends on your family. Like if you're in like a hippy dippy family in Vermont, like chances are your mom's not going to kick you out of the house with her Birkenstocks. Like you're probably fine. That's great. But if you are actually concerned that like this might end your relationship with your family and it might end it immediately, like, there's varying circumstances on the spectrum. So make sure if you're on that side of the spectrum, like, do you have a place to sleep that night? Do you have your stuff? Like, and I know this sounds insane, but like people really have to go through this. They have to like pack there's people who pack their bags before they come out to their family because they're like, I might not be here. I might have to go. I might never see them again. Now that's like fucking horrific. And I'm hoping that you're not in that situation, this person. Because I think most people aren't quite in that situation. It's becoming less common, but that is why, gay and trans youth were and still are completely impoverished, lifespans very low, especially trans youth, because people just fucking kill them because they're forced into like basically sex work, and then it's very, very, very dangerous because if the people decide that they're going to get violent with them, then they're just going to kill them.
Wonderful.
It's oh god,
terrible.
what a horrible way to answer this dude's question.
There's
okay.
no good answer though.
No, I mean, look,
there's no, and everybody's different.
I'll put it this way. Pretty much all of my friends are not like fully alienated from their families, even if they had like rough families. Like I knew one person who was basically like his family was in like a religious cult, essentially, like really hardcore, and they did not react well. And it took a lot of time, but I think a couple things. So number one, have your support system. Number two, be really confident in yourself, because despite what maybe negative things occur during this process, you need to be confident that there's nothing wrong with you.
Absolutely.
That's the biggest thing, is because if you're somebody who is going to take their, your family is unique. There's almost nothing, like your family can set you off like that. And it doesn't take much.
Yeah.
And any adult who goes home for Thanksgiving knows that.
it.
They
Yeah.
know it. They know that they are infantilized immediately. They are right back where it was, and their mother, their father, their siblings could say one thing that is just so, oh, that's the thing. And you just turn into that person. It's like that Ryan Reynolds movie when he goes home to try to remember he has a red Porsche in the snow. Anna Faris is in it.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, he goes home and he's this big, successful, super sexy guy. I think it's like Just Friends or something like that. And he wants to go impress. Well, he gets stuck at home for Christmas or whatever. And so the whole idea was like, well, while I'm here, I'm going to impress like Jamie, whatever her name is. And he can't, because it's like he's right back there. Like he lets them put him back in that box. So what I'm saying is, you need to be so out of that box at that point that you need to be able to confidently say, like, look, no matter what their opinion of this is, I know that I am okay, that I am right. I am an okay person. Nothing is wrong with me because of this. And if they have a problem with it, it is their problem that they will come to terms with, and I will leave the door open for them to come to terms with it if they need to. Now, the other side of this is you tell them, they embrace you with tears and say, we've always known, we love you, and thanks for telling us. And that's fine. That's maybe more common now than it used to be. Or it might just be awkward because you're like, the weirdest thing about coming out is like having to talk about sex with somebody that you don't want to talk about sex with.
Yeah.
That's gross.
Yeah.
Like if you're 16 years old and you're a girl and you're straight, do you say, Mom, Dad, I love dicks? No, that's disgusting. That is fucking disgusting. That is so weird. But this is what gay men and women have to do all over the country, is they have to tell their families what they like to fuck. And
What
it's
they
gross.
prefer, yeah.
It's so gross. I hate that we have to do it, but I guess you got to do it because then it's maybe less shocking when you bring a boyfriend instead of a girlfriend home or something. I don't know. I don't even, I would love to be in a post coming out world. That would be really
It's just
neat.
normal, yeah.
We're not there though. Yeah. So fuck. I think I spent more time on the negatives just because I'm worried. Because you're worried.
Because the question was brought up.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that I'm sorry. I always go to worst case scenario. That is probably not the situation that you're going to run into, but just have a close support system. So you've got friends to lean on. Real friends, not bullshit, like not someone who's just going to be like, well, whatever. Make sure that there is, if it's needed, somewhere to sleep. And then make sure that you leave the door open for your family, because if it is a shock to them, if it is something that they adversely react to, we need to be forgiving.
They need to process it sometimes.
Right. So we need to have a little bit of grace. Some kids come home and they say, Mom, I drive a Toyota. And they kick them out of the house for the rest of their lives. They're like, no, this is the fucking Honda family. Mom, I bought a Hyundai.
I know.
Get out.
Exactly. Go home.
Get out. Not in this house.
Go back to your father.
I don't know. So best of luck. I hope that goes much.
I'm sure it will go.
I'm sure you'll be okay. But just know that it is there is support. There are people. You are you, and be confident in yourself. Sometimes it takes a lot of guts to be able to say that. I was 20 and I had just had my tonsils taken out. And so I got literal liquid courage because I was taking Roxaset, which is a liquid Percocet, essentially, like
Yummy.
Yeah, great. So I was on opioids. Good. That's helpful. And I remember I took a little bit for the pain, and then I went and told my mom, and it went well. But then I woke up like, I fell asleep because it just puts you to sleep, and I was like, oh God, did I do it? It was so terrifying. It was weird for a while. Even though my parents reacted really well to it for the most part, it was still weird.
It's still awkward.
Yeah.
Because there's still that unknown.
Yeah. It was like, it was just weird. And it was like a thing where you're like, oh, like we have to adjust. And also like, I didn't wait that long before I knew, because I was kind of like figuring this out on my own too. So I kind of just was like, I'm just going to compound this all within a few months. And I was just like, rip the Band-Aid off.
I think sometimes that's the right way, though.
Yeah. I don't hide things very long. All right, let's take one more. Here's some good quality. Here's a good quality question from Jonathan K18 Cam. Why is braking while steering difficult? Eddie, the front wheel drive king. Why is braking while steering difficult?
Well, in my particular situation, you're asking the car to do everything on the front. So when you're braking and turning, you're losing mechanical grip. But at the same time, you need that mechanical grip to slow down. Those tires are the only thing you have between you and the pavement.
Which is interesting too, though, because braking while steering is actually also the best way to get around a corner in some regards.
Yeah, in some regards. And in some situations, trail braking is the right way. Like in Big Bend at Lime Rock, you have to trail brake. That's the fastest way around that corner. But on the street, most of the time, it's an emergency last resort situation when you get to that point where you're braking while turning. You're going around a corner too fast and you are deep in the pedal. And I mean ABS, everything.
Yeah.
The car is literally on the edge of locking up. Even with ABS, it still can happen.
Right. I think the best way to look at it is that a tire only has so much friction.
Exactly.
It only has so much grip.
Can only do so much.
And so if you're asking it to brake, you're asking a certain amount of that available grip to be used. If you're turning, you're asking for a certain amount of available grip to be used. Now, the reason why trail braking or settling a car into a corner on the brakes can be helpful is that you're putting more weight over those wheels, over those tires, and you're actually expanding you're doing two things. You're expanding the contact patch because you're deforming the sidewall. So the tire actually gets wider under braking, which is good because now you have more available grip. And you're also putting more force over that tire. So it's like if you put your hand on a table and you put almost no pressure on it and you move it forward and backwards, it doesn't take, you can feel a little bit of friction on your fingertips and your palm. But then if you put all of your body weight and try to move your hand, you can barely move it, right? So that's good when it comes to grip, because you want to turn, you want all that available grip. So you're actually giving the tire more grip because you're putting more force on it. But if you're asking it to also brake, then that's where you have problems. So you want to settle the nose in on those brakes and then peel off the pedal as you're turning in. So you just want to be balancing that.
There's definitely a balance going on there, because you give too much brake, that's when you get into sticky situations. The car gets unsettled. You don't give enough brake, it's the same thing. The car gets really unsettled because now you've taken the weight off of the front wheels, and now there's nothing.
Exactly.
Now the car's doing its own thing.
So if you take a rear wheel drive car, for example, and you go, let's say we're just in a big circle, big circle, we're just going steady state. You have the wheel cocked maybe like 10 degrees, or it's a Miata, it's pretty slow. We'll go 20 degrees. If you go as fast as you possibly can, you're going to have to be like a little bit just feathering that throttle. If you floor it, the car is going to understeer. You're going to lose turning grip because you've taken that weight off the nose. So it's just like taking your weight off your hand. It's just going to slide across the table.
Exactly.
So, same
I
idea.
think that's a pretty good explanation.
Yeah, I hope that helps.
Without getting too technical with savvy words.
A lot of people like to use the grip circle as the benchmark, or but it's like actually not fully true. The grip circle where you say, okay, if you have a G in each direction and you use a G of braking, then you have no steering left. But I think it's a good way to visualize it, but I don't know that it's necessarily like the scientific proof, because when you put more weight over the front wheels, you are increasing the grip of that tire. It's not quite as one-to-one and linear as you would like it to be.
Yeah.
There is nuance to it.
Absolutely.
So, but that's like a grip circle is a great way to get an understanding of like how you're balancing a car and how you're using your available grip.
Yeah. I mean, and you'll feel it.
I mean, just take it this way. Like if you like the tire doesn't innately have grip, right? Like if you take your car and you put it up on jacks, does that tire have any grip?
No.
No, it has fuck all. But if you're at 200 miles an hour and you've got a bunch of aero, guess what? That tire's got more grip because you're pushing down on it.
Exactly.
Downforce gives you grip, baby.
That's why the Civic Type R has a wing.
And that's how to end it. Eddie, thanks for joining.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And that's going to conclude today's podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for supporting me. I mean, that's the thing. It's a one-man show in a lot of ways, but that's just the creation and the editing and stuff. There's a lot of people involved in this. And when I say thanks for supporting, it's not simply the people who are watching or listening. It's the people who are putting up their cars and saying like, hey, I like what you do. I want you to drive my vehicle. I want it to be showcased the way you do your thing. Go do your thing. Tell me what you think. That means the world to me. And I don't know what to say. It's crazy that this is a thing. I'm grateful for it every day, even when it feels like a grind, because sometimes it feels like a grind. But at the end of the day, I'm just trying to have my fun and bring you along for that experience. So don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one.